How's it going? How you doing, sir?
How's it going, Gino?
Man, I haven't seen you in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I'm glad we're connecting because I've been seeing, there's two reasons why I want you to come in. One, I've been seeing your name everywhere, which I think is incredible, so I want to hear more about that. Two, you also were at the State of the City address yesterday, and I wanted to get your opinion on how you feel the city's going, because the big thing that I heard yesterday, it seemed like everyone was so focused on roads.
Yeah.
Like that's the big topic. And
Yeah.
whenever you see any stories, and I'm sure you've seen it too, for anything good coming to town, for any positive story that the news outlets will put out on Facebook or social media,
Right.
what's the first comment? It's a positive story.
And then somebody's got to comment about the roads.
Something about the roads.
Fix the roads.
We just saved 1 million babies
Yeah.
from trees and a burning bus.
Fix my streets.
But what about the roads?
Yeah.
And I think that if more people could just, I know some of those addresses aren't like public. I know they have like certain videos that
Right.
you can go to YouTube for.
Yeah.
I wish more people would just like kind of tune in a little bit
Yeah.
and go, hey, we're working on it.
Yeah.
Not we, like I'm not doing anything,
Right,
but
right.
like the city's working on
Yeah.
it, but it's a lot of roads.
Yeah.
And they said yesterday, they said that the plan, or Paulette said, the plan originally was for 60 years
Yeah.
was the plan.
Yeah.
And then somehow, I guess that maybe they found different contractors or different way to do it.
Yep.
And they got it down to what years?
I think 12 is what they were saying yesterday. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And then they had a video that played. They had a
Yeah.
video that played, Jessica. And there's always different people from the city talking. And they talk about the streets, talk about the different issues. And they say, yeah, well, we're just hoping to have these streets fixed within our lifetime. Literally, the whole crowd was just cracking up like, yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too. Even the young people in the crowd. Yeah.
So for people that don't know who you are, explain what you do, explain yourself, introduce yourself however you like.
Yeah.
Because I would like to know too, because I mean, we met each other a really long time ago.
Yeah.
And I've just seen you grow and grow and grow. So what are you doing these days?
My name is Philip Ramirez, and I am the president and principal architect of Turner Ramirez Architects. We're a commercial architecture firm. We design kind of sort of everything under the sun. There's in architecture, just like in real estate, you can become real specialized in certain things that you do. You have residential architects, and you have people that do hospitality or hospitals, things of that nature, healthcare. And I've always just kind of had this dream since I decided to become an architect to really kind of sort of be involved in anything cool and interesting within our community and design all sorts of types of projects. So we really kind of sort of we design anything under the sun that is appealing to us, or from good clients that we have. We've got a lot of really great clients that we've been able to work with, and so our work varies from memorials, parks, to we're working on higher education projects, K through 12 projects, elementary schools. We're working on the new police academy.
That's why I wanted you in here, because you mentioned real estate.
Yeah.
For us, building houses and developing a house, it's pretty simple when it comes down to, hey, we got 4 walls, we got some bathrooms, we got a kitchen, we got our plumbing, we got our electrical.
Yeah.
But I personally, especially when I drive around, like the big building that I was passing by for a long time, because we were building a house, and so I was going through Rancho Vista.
Yeah.
I'm on Yorktown.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the Del Mar building go
Yeah.
up. And I'm watching all that stuff over there, and I'm looking at it, and I'm just thinking like, okay, again, 4 walls, bathroom, kitchen,
Yeah.
there's your house.
Yeah.
When you see something like that, it's like, what mad scientist is going, all right, here's floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, here's how this works. Like,
Yeah.
So that's you, right? Like that's essentially what you're doing, is creating these
That's right.
plans
Yeah.
that somehow are able to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
And just the square footage is this, what's the biggest thing you've ever built? Design.
So the Del Mar College campus ranks up there. I've got a couple of projects that we've worked on that are in 250,000 square feet, 250,000 square feet, something like that.
And what are those buildings?
Did some work for the National Guard, actually, in Austin, right there outside of Austin Bergstrom International Airport. Got a chance to build a 265,000 square foot building there for the National Guard. And it's a multi-story building, really slick and cool. I mean, it was a really great project to be involved in, just because of you talk about a different aspect, right? I mean, you have a military design versus
Yeah.
commercial design. You got you're designing something for
Are they
college
coming
students.
to you with an idea that you essentially have to say, yeah, that's not going to work, I'm going to have to do it this way?
No, not necessarily. I mean, they have their standards and things that are unique about their way they do things, but you treat them like any other client, right? I mean, they have a vision and idea, and really our job is to take that information that we have, and they kind of have a program of all the different spaces that they need and things of that nature, and then it's really about putting the puzzle pieces together. It's really trying to figure out how it goes together in a way that works. You got your codes that you have to think about. You've got costs that you got to think about.
Yeah.
You got their kind of functionality. You don't want to put obviously
especially with commercial, and there's so many different options available when it comes
Yeah.
to just finishes and when it comes
Sure.
to the materials. It's like, all right, we're gonna go do concrete. Are we doing cinder? Are we doing this?
There's somebody once told me, and I have no way to verify it, but that on a project of that scale, that there are a million discrete decisions that have to be made in the planning of a project like that.
Yeah, I mean, just
at a
picture
minimum,
any
right?
building you walk into, commercial-wise, like a real building, not
Yeah.
like just like a Stripes.
Sure,
but like
sure.
a building. Like you're right. How many decisions are
Yeah.
made on every little piece and all the functionality and all the different trades that go in? You're like, oh wow, this all has. It's like a little city.
It is.
You know what I'm saying?
It is, and and just the amount of people that have to be involved. I mean, in the commercial world, I mean, we have to have. You just think about the teams that are there. I have my
Yeah.
own team who's amazing. I would be remiss in not giving a shout out to them because they are just truly masters in their.
I truly
in
have a
their
lot
realm.
of questions, so I'm gonna keep
Sure.
pausing you as
Yeah.
I kind of like my brain
fine. Yeah,
goes
no,
different
you're good.
directions. Let's start from the beginning. So tell me kind of your story, where you went to
Yeah.
school, how you got into this. Did you ever do real estate at any point?
No, but
I would think that's like the easy, like the building blocks to go into you. It's like, all right, we're
Sure.
going to start with tree houses, and
Yeah.
then we're going to go to real estate,
Yeah,
and then we're
yeah.
going to maybe dog houses, and then we're going to go to commercial.
Well, so I born and raised here. Grew up in Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Mom and dad are been here. They both worked out at CCAD. Had a pretty awesome childhood. Had two.
That was
older
crazy
sisters.
that Paulette mentioned that yesterday. She's like, there's 4,000 employees over there? I had no idea.
Yeah. It's a huge operation. My mom was the only job she ever had, and she
Really?
worked out there 37 years. She started out at 19 years old. Grew up in Flower Bluff, and it was the only job she ever had. My dad was in the military, and they met after he came back from Vietnam, and he was a helicopter mechanic in the military, and but he was born in
Yeah.
Portland, and they ended up meeting at a dance, and and then but
A
ended up-
dance, like a school dance?
no,
Or-
like
Who went to-
like
a baila?
yeah, it was I don't even know where it was, but anyways, they met, and but both ended up working out there for the majority of their careers. My dad was a would-be entrepreneur. He owned a couple of restaurants at
Nice.
various times in his career, and then ended up always going back to the base because he couldn't sell enough tacos or whatever. And so but grew up in Portland and went to school there, and really had a dream and a vision to be involved in aviation somehow. Mom
Really?
and dad were out there. My dad loved jets and helicopters and all sorts of stuff, and I did too. And but it was kind of interesting because I started looking into it and looking into like joining the Air Force and becoming going to the Air Force Academy and becoming a
You want to be
designer.
like Top Gun? Oh,
Yeah, like a lot. But I've ultimately wanted to be a aerospace engineer, right? Like
Oh.
I was like fascinated with aircraft. But
What were you watching when you were little?
Well,
What were you
I was around.
into?
I was around my my parents, and
Yeah.
they worked around. We'd go to the Blue Angels all the time. I thought it was just the coolest thing ever, and I still think
It still is, yeah.
it's still the coolest thing ever. And but I was also artistic and creative. My dad was a fine oil painter. I mean, photorealistic oil painter, self-taught, like just really incredible artist. And I'm
What
not,
did he like to paint? What were you seeing?
Like photorealistic wildlife,
Really?
like these beautiful, like you look at it from 10 feet away, you're like, is that a picture? And then you get up to it and you see all the little tiny
It's
little
like something like this?
yeah, no, and just tiny little brush strokes and these animals, and it's fantastic,
cool. Bob
fantastic.
Ross style.
Yeah, fantastic artist, and but was really kind of interesting because he also had that real technical mindset because he was a mechanic. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a very gifted mechanic, and that usually doesn't go together, right? I mean, you usually have you're either artistic or you're
One or the other, yeah.
mechanical, but have a blend of both is kind of really and you could cook. It's kind of a real interesting Renaissance man. And then my mother is the type of person that she could. She does it all the time. We're sitting in line at the grocery store, and she's like talking to the lady, and next thing you know, that she's like, "Oh well, maybe we should get together sometime." It's like you don't even know this lady. I mean, she's just so outgoing, and my dad was the antithesis of that. He's kind of kept to himself,
Yeah.
quiet guy.
Always probably had a project he was working on.
Oh, always classic cars. I know you're
Oh,
a classic
cool.
car
Yeah.
guy. I mean, he had a '57 Chevy 2-door Bel Air hardtop. We restored when I was 15 years old together, like total
Hell yeah.
frame off, restoration, and could do all that stuff. And
So did you find when you were younger and your dad was doing that stuff, like your mind was kind of working the same way?
Sure,
Like you wanted
sure.
to have little things to put together,
yeah,
create?
he taught me, how to work on my own cars. When I had first truck, taught me how to, put in, change my oil, replace an alternator. I mean, all that little basic stuff. But it really was great to have that kind of technical hands-on
Well, especially
knowledge.
back then. I think nowadays, it's so easy to find information and find out how to do things.
Sure.
But I remember being younger and my dad having, an ability to do certain things, or a friend that knew how to do it.
Yeah.
Because there was no YouTube.
No,
Hey,
no,
let me
yeah,
go
you can't
YouTube
go-
how to do
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Or
yeah,
you
yeah.
could maybe go to the hardware store.
Somebody
Maybe
better
some of
know
those
what they're
people would
doing.
know.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then, like if you knew that kind of stuff, like you were the go-to guy
yeah.
all the time for
He-
even things that weren't related. Like, hey, fix this. I'm like, I've never fixed that before, but I guess I'll take a look.
Yeah, no, for sure, and so that worked really well. But my mother, on her side, she was a computer programmer, and so at the base, so she was really into technology. I mean, got me a computer. Like I remember my Apple II computer, like playing Oregon Trail with a floppy disk. I mean, pretty early on, and she was she knew that this was kind of coming.
Right around that time, I had a friend last night. We had dinner, and we were talking about like some of our first jobs. And one of the first jobs that he was sad he didn't get was at Best Buy. And it was right around like the early 2000s.
Sure.
And right before that, you're right. There was a time where I feel like between like 90 and 2010-ish
Yeah.
is those years where so much was happening so fast
Right.
that you either catch up
Yeah.
or you're left behind. Because when
Right.
I worked at Best Buy early 2000s,
Yeah.
it was like all the DVDs, all
Yep.
the mini discs, all the laser discs, all the broadband,
Yep.
all these different higher speed internets and like USB cables where people are like, what the fuck is a USB cable? And it was all happening
Yeah.
and people were just learning how to do it. And
Yeah.
you're right. If people didn't know,
Yeah.
it's like, I have no idea how to work that. Now, all the schools, everybody, it's all computers.
Like
Every single thing
I look
you
at
do.
my kid. I mean, you look at your kids. I mean,
Dude, my little boy's first day of kindergarten, because
Yeah.
it was during COVID, was on the computer.
Yeah.
It was on the laptop. I have
they
a picture of him. He's sitting there and
they
he's
knew
in front of
exactly
the
what to do.
laptop.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I'm like, this is weird. But
Yeah.
yeah, like they're just born into it now.
they're born into it. Yeah. So they just that kind of fusion between both of them was kind of great. And my mom, I kind of expressed this desire to go become an aerospace engineer. Right, that was my
Really?
plan, and be a fighter pilot. Right.
This is high school, middle school?
Yeah, this is high school.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that was the plan. Up until
I didn't even know where Delmar was at when I was in high school. I was
Yeah,
like, the
yeah,
what? You're
yeah.
applying to where?
Yeah, where? Yeah. So I, my mom was like, well, this is really what you want to do. We started talking about careers and future and stuff. As a freshman, right? And so she's like, look, if you want to be an aerospace engineer, see if there's any classes like, computer related or drafting or anything like that. And just so happened that they had a computer aided drafting class. She's like, that could help you in your career. It's computer related. It's drafting. It's part of kind of what you want to do.
Well, I would think once you learn that software, it can kind of go anyway, right?
Right, and that's exactly what I did. So I started taking this class, and the guy that was teaching it was a guy named Ross Lamb, and he was he was supposed to be like a mechanical drafting class, which is more like an aerospace engineer, and then the other half of the class was architecture, and he was supposed to split it between the two. Well, he hated mechanical drafting. He was an architect.
He's probably better at, yeah.
Yeah, he was an architect, kind of a frustrated architect that ended up going to get a job as a teacher there at the school, because I guess for whatever he wasn't that great of an
Yeah.
architect, but he knew enough about it to teach, and was a great man, great mentor of mine, and he really pushed me. He's like, hey man, I know this is what you want to do, and you have those people in your life that kind of sort of they pop up at a moment in time, and they're like, look, I get that's what you want to do, but you really thought about, you're really good at this. And I was starting to show some potential, and he's kind of pushing me in that direction. And he's like, I think, have you ever thought about the reality of what it is to be an aerospace engineer, what they do? He's like, you know how long, and he was a naval pilot from Vietnam, so he knew, like, he flew jets. So he's like, you know how long it takes to develop a jet? And I'm like, I never really thought about that. But
How
in my
long?
mind,
Do you know now?
Like 20 years, like 15, 20 years. Yeah, I mean, it's a
So
lot.
the stuff that we see that the military has now, that's
Sure,
just been
yeah.
designed for that many
Yeah,
years?
yeah. I
Maybe
mean,
a little bit
some-
faster
yeah,
now, but
yeah,
back then.
yeah. But by the time they kind of it's inception to the point where they're testing it and it's done, and then you move on to the next project, he's like, so you're going to design one jet? Really? You're going to spend 15 years of your career on that? It's like, really what you want to do? And I'm like, well, I never really thought about that.
That's
He's
the way
like-
to see it, too.
He's like, architecture, he's like, think about it, man. You could be so much more prolific. I mean, you can do all of these projects, simultaneously, and it really is something that could be really cool. And so that's what I did. I was like, man, you're right. And so I really took a shining to it and really enjoyed it and excelled in the class, and ended up deciding, that summer after taking one semester with, 1 year with him, when summer came around, my dad's like, you got to get a job. Like, you ain't hanging out with your friends. Like, you can, and I mowed lawns a year before, made a little bit of money, and, it was fine. And so I went and started calling people. I was like, I know how to draft. Like, this is a skill, and there's not.
What were you offering up to people?
Just to go in and just do anything, man. I'd
Yeah.
do whatever. I had never had a real job before. I mean, it was,
And that's using what software?
So it was AutoCAD back in the day, right?
Yeah, because I've heard that for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Like when people knew that, it was basically like knowing a language, right?
It was, right? And so, but even then, even as young as I was, it had only been used in a commercial setting in architecture, right, for a few years. So it wasn't like people were just like, man, I've been doing this for decades, So,
but they were doing it by hand.
Yeah, they were doing it all by hand.
With the big draft tables, right?
Absolutely. And so when I started just calling people in the phone book, and got all the way to the T's, man. There was a lot of architecture firms, man. I was striking out. I was a 17-year-old kid. What do I have to offer, right?
What was the first opportunity?
Was with Mr. Turner. And,
really?
Yeah, it was a place I now own. And
how weird.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And so I called up there, and they're like, "Hey, we just had a guy quit, and that's great." I said, "Look, I've never had a job before," and they're like, "Well, look, you can either do it or you can't. And so we're going to give you a test. Come on in. I talked to Mr. Turner. He said, come on in. We'll give you a test, and you can do it. You can." So I went and did the test and got
What's the
there.
test? Like a test?
It was a test to draw like a construction detail, like in a set of plans, right? And so I'm like, okay. So I go in there and I do the test, and it was I freaked out a little bit because it was in a different version of the software. Remember DOS and Windows, right? I had learned in Windows. It had icons.
Yeah, so now you're going to
DOS was
prompts.
DOS was all drop down menus, and so they had DOS still, and the school district had a more advanced software than they
it's
were
like,
using.
can I upgrade y'all first?
So I'm like, but I still was able to. I knew enough. I was fast enough, proficient enough, and I did the detail, and they hired me, and I was there. It was minimum wage at the time. It was like $5.25 an hour.
So you now run the place you cold called back then.
Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Yeah. That would have been 25 years ago. Well, 26 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So
you never had any other job?
No.
I mean, you said like you did like side hustles when you were younger, cutting grass, but never had.
Yeah.
Oh, how amazing!
I owned a car stereo company, a distributorship,
Cool.
Back when I was in high school too.
Okay. Wait, what?
Yeah. Had it
was like an MLM. What do you mean?
Me and my buddy. Remember you got like the Crutchfield and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And remember there was like Auto Tech and all these. Was kind of big. And then in the
So I guess when
90s,
people had to like order stuff.
Yeah, they would order stuff, and we just got a distributorship. But we were selling enough of it, and we had a credit card machine and everything. It was like we were just doing it from our house. Me and my buddy, and we made pretty good money,
I got
man.
a buddy, he sells radios.
But
obviously
I already had that kind of entrepreneurial. I was like, hey man, this is a side hustle. Like I could. My sisters were like, I remember them being pissed at me because they were like, working, odd and end jobs and just barely making by, and they were already out of college. They were already out of college.
Oh.
My sisters are 10 and 11 years older than me. And I was making more money than them just like on a side hustle, like selling car stereo stuff,
I think for some people that
it to the kids,
go that life and then they see someone in sales or doing like a business or running something, it doesn't make sense to them. They're like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, for example, when I first started real estate, and my cousin would tell me just different numbers, and you throw them out there. I'm like,
no way.
That's not real.
Yeah.
You're pulling my leg.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that you did this or did that.
Yeah.
You have to go and work these hours to get that.
Right.
And so I guess in your world too, is it almost a sales-based kind of thing? Because I mean, you have projects that you're taking on for people.
For
so
sure.
if you don't have projects going, it's like you're not getting paid, right?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and the reality is that you think about it. I mean, look at your clientele on the commercial side, right? I mean, generally speaking, you're I'm literally marketing to 1% of the population in reality. I mean, just the decision makers, right, at the college level or at the city level. You're not marketing to the masses. I mean, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And the decision makers are people.
Well, there's only so many people that have the funds to build the projects you're capable of now doing.
So it's a very select clientele in the sense that your bandwidth is not the same as if you were selling anything else. So it's so there is definitely a marketing aspect to it. There's definitely
do you ever turn down jobs if they're like maybe too small or the scale's not worth?
Yeah, we do. I mean, certainly starting out, I mean, obviously you kind of take whatever you can, but we certainly have gotten to a point where we can be more selective, right? And there's just jobs that just don't make sense for us, And I'm always very honest with our clientele. It's like, look, or somebody calls and says, hey, I got a barn I want to design, for out at a ranch. I'm like, here, call this person.
They want a barndominium,
right? And or a small retail center or something like that. And it's generally there are other, as I mentioned, there are other firms in town that are more specialized towards that, and they're going to be more cost effective, just generally speaking, because that's what they do, and they do it all day long. And I'm like, look, we're probably not the best. We're like firing up a semi trailer to move a couch when you need a guy with a truck.
Good
analogy. Yeah, and the reality is we can do it, but it's probably more than what you need. And so, So going back to kind of how did this all transpire? Anyways, he ended up getting a job there, right, and really hit it off with Mr. Turner. And
So nailed the test. Figured out the DOS.
Started working there. Like 2 weeks in, everybody let the door hit them on the way out, and he comes in all flustered and needed a presentation done because he forgot he had a meeting in the morning. He's like, I need these concepts like for these 2 pools drawn up like tomorrow, like by.
So he was designing pools back then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we do. I mean, all sorts of stuff. Yeah. This is a pool for Port Aransas. And so anyways.
A big pool.
Community pool. Yeah. It wasn't like a backyard swimming pool. No, this is like a community pool. Anyways, so he's like, I was like, well, I think I can help you. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I think so. And he's like, you'll have to stay late. I'm like, hey, man, I'll do whatever I got to do, And so I ended up staying until like midnight, and, I was just, I was a kid. I was, 17 years old at this point in time. And, I stayed late that night. I got it all done, had it all mounted. And, he came in, swooped in, that morning, grabbed the boards, drove to Port Aransas, and then made his presentation. Comes back and after lunch, after the presentation, and I just hear him yell from his office, like, Philip, get in here. I'm like, oh man, I screwed something up. I'm fired. And he called me in and he said, look, that presentation went great. And he's like, you were here, you did he said, literally, you did an adult's job. Mm-hmm. I know you're a kid, and I'm paying you minimum wages. I'm instantly giving you a raise. He's like, if you can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
Instantly gave me a raise, like, I don't know, it was like, $3 an hour raise, like right there on the spot. And I'm like, hey, man. And he's like, I want to talk to you about your future, And so, we started talking a little bit about what I wanted to do and stuff like that. And at the end of that summer, he's like, look, I see you got a lot of potential. And he said, I don't have anybody that's coming up underneath me. I've kind of shrunk this company down. I have my 1 foot into retirement. He was already in his, we were 50 years different. So if I was 17, he was 57, so no, 67, sorry. And so he didn't have anybody coming up through the ranks to be a successor, And so, at the end of the summer, he's like, look, if this is really what you want to do, he said, I'll train you. And, I'll train you to become an architect. You need to get into a architecture school, go through school, but you can continue to have a job here, work with me every summer or whenever you have breaks.
So he really took you in.
Oh, he did. Oh,
did he have kids or anybody
he
else?
did, but both of his kids were in real estate and really? or finance and real estate, and they lived in Dallas, and they had their own lives up there and had no interest in taking over the company. And I thought about it and said, what, it sounds like a pretty good deal. I'll take you up on that deal. And he said, if you go and do these things, you get your architecture license and you keep working for me. He's like, I'll make you a partner, and one day you'll go on.
He told you that at 17?
Yeah. He said, one day you'll go on to if you do everything right, you'll go on to own this company. And so
here you are.
Yeah.
You did everything right.
I guess so. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, for a 17-year-old kid to kind of, that sounds pretty good. That's what I'm going to do. And that's what I did. And, it wasn't easy, there was lots of lessons along the way, and he really did give me a lot of opportunity, but he made me work for it. I had to start at the bottom. It wasn't like, hey, man, here's the keys. I remember finally graduating from college and thinking, man, I'm going to come back and I'm going to work for him. I'm going to get it. I'm working full time for him now. I'm coming back. I chose and made the decision to come back to Corpus, right? I was in Austin at UT, graduated from architecture school. But had continued to work for him in the summer. So this is
Well, I guess with that kind of job, you can kind of be wherever you want. So you were going to school and over there.
Yeah, and the popular thing was all my friends were staying there, right? They're getting jobs at architecture firms in Austin, and man, this is in 2004, and it's like, man, that's a cool thing to do. Like, why wouldn't I stay in Austin, right? And all my friends were like, what's there for you in Corpus? And my answer was, well, a job and a career. Like I have an opportunity here, and I see potential here, and I see.
But also opportunity to be, I feel like, in Austin, I remember being that same age.
Yeah.
And everyone was always talking about Austin or San Antonio or Houston. And there's always opportunities. But the way I saw it back then was like, okay, I can go there, and maybe there is opportunities, but I'm also going to be among a lot of competition.
That's right.
And so there's going to be a lot of big fishes, but in a big pond.
Right.
I'd rather be a big fish in a smaller pond.
That's right.
Where I can kind of take a little bit more over.
Yeah, and it was interesting because you lived through it too. There was, I felt in that regard that there was almost and there is today, even in my profession, there's almost a missing generation of ownership. If I look at my competitors, their own, I'm their children's age, right? Mm-hmm. And so I didn't see that progression happening with the firms. There was a gap in kind of sort of, I was like, look, there's an opportunity here. Like, I think that there's something that I can build this company and continue to be competitive and keep growing. And So I made that decision to come back. This is home, and like you said, I mean, I thought that from a business perspective it was good, but I also, from a personal perspective, I saw, everybody talks about the potential of Corpus, right? I mean, we throw that around pretty loosely, but the reality is it's there and it's real, and I'm starting to see. Well, I know we'll get to that, but I'm starting to really see that gain a lot of serious momentum, and it's taking time, and that's okay.
I
it's
feel
just
like
anything else.
I've talked to a few people about this over the last couple of years. I feel like the momentum was picking up quite a bit right before COVID.
Yes, it was.
Downtown wise,
Sure.
things were moving. It was snowballing, and then it took I think everywhere it took a big pause.
Yes.
And here we are again, snowballs going again.
Yep.
But I think what people don't realize, and going back to the people that are complaining about the streets,
Yeah.
is that there's a lot of moving parts that take place, and it takes time.
It does.
Maybe it's because when they go out of town, they see things moving a little faster,
Sure.
or in their eyes it's faster because they're not there every
Yeah.
single day in the traffic
Yeah.
driving through.
Yeah.
Or just seeing things go up, and it's like, oh, wow, how many times have you gone to San Antonio? You're like, wow, they built all this stuff, but you're not there every single day.
No, you're not.
So things like that are happening here. I think people need to take a more active part in
Sure.
making these things happen, and
Yeah.
not just be like, how come we haven't got the Target yet? Or how come we haven't got the new da-da-da yet? Or I heard we didn't get this.
I mean, man, in school in Austin, I mean, at UT in, 98, 99, Austin wasn't like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not that long ago in the history of a city and the progression of a city. And you look at it, what it is today. I mean, I'm not saying we'll ever be Austin, but at the end of the day, that's a progression that takes a couple of decades.
It takes
just does.
decades, and
it
it
just
takes
gains more and more momentum over time.
a new group of people to come
It
in,
does.
young
Yeah.
blood, and
Yeah,
there's
for
different
sure.
people that control things.
Yeah.
But it's nice to see that, like you said, you're actually getting to shape what the city's going to look like.
Yeah, no.
You ever thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because we were talking about the State of the City address, and as Mayor Guajardo was talking about, Paulette was talking about these various things, and I'm sitting back thinking, of the projects that we're involved in right now. I mean, we're involved in the police academy that they talked about. That's a design that we did, on Del Mar campus, which is also something else we did on the Oso Creek campus, which has become a district
amazing.
in and of itself, right? I mean, kind of a hub right there at the corner of Yorktown and Roger.
For anybody that hasn't driven by there or driven into the parking lot, it's a beautiful buildings,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful campus. Sorry,
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what amazes me. It's
yeah,
like, how is this being done?
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it's really, and it's architecture like you don't typically see here.
Once
right?
you make, if I can ask this question real
Yeah.
quick, once you make these plans for these buildings and these campuses and these different, little cities, I'll call them, how far into it are you still involved? I mean, all the way through ribbon cutting, essentially,
all the way,
right?
Even beyond that, I mean, because the buildings are living, breathing things. I mean, you guys own enough real estate, or you're involved in enough real estate in the sense that it's always something. I mean, they are living, breathing things, and they need maintenance or something. Doesn't work properly or whatever, and we're always there to try to support our customers, our clients. Even through that. I mean, I've had clients call me 10 years after the building's done and be like, "Hey, man, like our air conditioning went out." It's like, well, hey, I can help you. I mean,
Not sure it's really on me at this point.
right,
Yeah.
but that's but we're a customer service
Sure.
oriented business regardless, and it's whether we're selling widgets or we're doing architecture, it's still the same thing, and it's it's about that kind of how do you treat your clients, right? And that's just a huge part of it, and you just take care of them, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it may not be what you want to do, or it may not be but it's the right thing to do, and if you want to continue them coming back and continuing to use you. That's just part of it, right?
Okay, so I interrupt you when you were going
No,
down
you're
the
fine.
list, and I know that once people hear this and they see the videos and they're going to hear the name, they're going to start seeing your logo like the way I see it.
Yeah.
Because I see it on the sponsorships, I see it on the different events, I see
Yeah.
it on the signs, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy that's making that building and that
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
So let's kind of go through different projects that have in the works that people can see kind of going up, and maybe
Sure.
some stuff that you're proud of that y'all
Yeah.
have done the last couple of years.
So Del Mar Southside Campus, or Oso Creek Campus as it's called now, is a big one. The police academy that's going on right next door to that. We just got commissioned also to build a new substation there on it. So
Awesome.
and the bus stops that you see there also
Yep.
for the RTA, we designed those two.
I thought it was an art piece at first.
Yeah.
When it was
So-
going up, it was all big old concrete. I was like, what is
Yeah.
that thing?
Yeah,
And
they're
then I
pretty
saw it.
different
I was
looking.
like, damn, those are some fancy ass bus
They
stops.
are some intricate bus stops,
Yeah.
but cool. I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
something different, right? And so that just in that little district, we've got that going on. And then we just finished Cullen Elementary School for CCISD. That's a 100,000 square foot, 1,000 student elementary school. CCISD's also hired us to reimagine the old Carroll High School site as a career and technology hub
Oh, really?
for the district.
I was wondering what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, so that's in its early phases, but we're looking at that.
Oh, so y'all take on projects that are reimagining or remodeling or renovating
yeah.
current
buildings. It's a variety of things. We're doing a lot of work currently on Del Mar East Campus, the old
Mm-hmm.
White Library. If you're familiar with that building, I mean, we tore like the fifth floor off of. We gutted that entire building and are reimagining that. Dr. Escamilla had this vision of really giving that building back to the students and really making it a cool library, right? Because they've evolved over time, and it's not the dusty old library.
Pause on that. That library is where I saw 9/11.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I remember sitting there in the middle, like the little entry area.
Yeah.
When you would check in,
Yeah.
they had a big old box TV in the back wall.
And everybody just
I
glued
remember
to the television.
that's only when you said that, I got like chills. That's the only thing I remember about that library. That and taking naps because I was always tired.
Yeah.
But being there for that day, I was like, oh crap! And everybody just looking at each other in the library, like, what are we doing here? Can we go home?
Yeah. No, I remember where I was exactly. And on that day as well, and it was doing the same thing at the Union there at UT in Austin, and so. But that's a reimagine. We're working on multiple projects there on the East Campus for Del Mar. Just finished the new Wildlife Rescue Center for the Texas State Aquarium right next door to the aquarium.
Damn, son.
and their splash pad.
He's literally building the whole city.
So another project that Paulette mentioned yesterday was Sherrill Park downtown, like right on the bayfront. We were reimagining did that master plan for a really cool military memorial-centric redesign of that entire park.
Oh, really?
We're doing the hotel project downtown
for Homewood Suites.
Yes. So
Damn.
That
was a sad moment because I know you said you're in Austin at that point, but 2000 to 2005.
But I would come back. Obviously, I was
right there on Chaparral. I know Stingers and Dicks.
Those were the glory days back then.
I went by there a couple weeks back, and I knew they were tearing everything down.
Yeah.
And so when I went by there, I was like, how? Oh, look at all this space. I was like, they tore everything.
Yes, and we went through that process. That's a collaboration between us and Turner Ramirez Architects and ZJZ Hospitality with Devin Bakhta. I don't know if you know Devin or not. Good friend of mine, fantastic leader here in the community, businessman, and we've become great friends. We were both kind of sort of. He was the chair-elect of the Chamber of Commerce, the old Chamber of Commerce, and I was the chair-elect or the vice chair of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce when we fused and merged and got to know each other through that process, and ultimately went on both of us to chair right back after each other the United Corpus Christi Chamber of Commerce, and we've become good friends since then and have really sort of tried to advance Corpus as a whole through volunteerism, but also just from development and things of that nature. So great collaboration there, but that's an exciting project that I think is really going to, there is some sentimental value there that's lost, but I think...
No, I'm fine. You can tear it down.
Yeah, well, what we're going to gain there is going to be a great mixed use. I've always considered that corridor to really be the heart of
how come
downtown.
I keep seeing, they say Top Golf Suites?
Yeah,
what does that mean?
So...
it's not a Top Golf. I think people were confused that it's an actual Top Golf.
It's not an actual Top Golf, but it is a Top Golf branded. I mean, it is a Top Golf... product, right? And so we're in that building. We'll have the first floor will be along Lomax Street. Will be the hotel lobby, and then along Chaparral Street we'll have about 6,000 to 7,000 square feet of retail.
Smart.
With high concrete ceilings and your 20-foot ceilings. So we're going to lease that space out.
Oh, wow.
Find a nice proprietor. There's outdoor seating on the backside that's off the street, so you can have outdoor dining or whatever. So we're going to try to put something nice there. And then we have 4 stories of hotel rooms above. That's 126 rooms. And then on the 5th floor, we have a rooftop bar up there. And the rooftop bar is obviously part of it's outdoor, the rooftop part. And then the other part of it's a bar. And next to it there are 2 large rooms, kind of like this, right, that have a screen, and it's a virtual Top Golf, right? So you rent, but it is a Top Golf, the simulator. It's just set up just like a Top Golf. I mean, when you're swinging, you're swinging
has all the
into a
different
screen.
Games, stuff like that.
Has all the same games and everything.
How
you
cool!
You kind of rent that out by the hour, and there's lounge seating.
So
is
that a partnership they have with Homewood that they just kind of go along, or is it just so this is 2 separate things then?
It's ZJZ Devin's company has they've got the rights to that,
cool.
for at least a certain area, I guess. I don't want to misspeak there. I don't really know. But there's going to be a couple of those, and we'll have those simulators in there, and you rent it out by the hour, and you can do karaoke in there. You can do all sorts of stuff. Watch video, watch games, football games, but it's lounge seating. You have your own dedicated server and everything, so it's kind of a neat,
let's give some credit to the. I have to ask. I forgot a second ago. Who? So how many people do you got with you?
So we've got. I think we're up to 26 people. We now have an office in San Antonio.
Because you're describing all these things, and in my head, because I'm stupid, I'm like, man, I just picture you late night just drawing all these sketches on the computer.
Way. No.
So you have a big team on you.
I am, and if I say it right, the reality is that I'm surrounded by people that are far more talented than I am. I want to sit here and I want to take full credit for, the design of the Del Mar, Oso Creek campus. Actually, that's designed by our lead designer, our design director is a guy named Luis Ayala, and he's speaks 5 languages. He's designed buildings all over the world, and a fantastic designer. But there's a whole team of people that I can go off. We have 11 licensed professionals, architects, interior designers.
So for most projects, is all 26 of those people have a hand in it, or is there like a certain team for this, certain team for that?
Usually there's teams, right? I mean, the teams are usually made up of 5 to 6 people that are kind of, and they're working on multiple projects typically. But I'm involved at a high level of kind of creatively, and
that's what I was going to ask. So your role now is more just kind of the relationships between all the different clients.
Yeah, I mean, and that's really what I love to do. I mean, I'm a good architect, but I have far more talented architects that are part of our team, that are much better than I am at design. Doesn't mean that I don't have my input and things of that nature, and I still love that part of it. But really, we play to our strengths. I mean, everybody has their strengths that they bring to the table, and we down to the people that are drafting, and so we talk about the evolution of technology. I mean, we've been huge adopters of just cutting edge technology to help us make us more productive and things of that nature. So I've got people that are, they're
so it went from you
top of the industry,
and Mr. Turner, just y'all two at one point.
No. There was about five people in the office back then.
I was like, damn, it was just a 2-man operation.
No. There was like 3 drafters, and then Diego Martinez, who's been with our office. He's been with Mr. Turner. He's now been with our company for 53 years.
Really?
The company was founded in 1958. He started working there, I think, or 54 years, because he started working there in 1969. He's still with us.
I was going to say, is Mr. Turner still with us?
No, he passed away, unfortunately, in 2017.
Okay.
And I bought the company from him kind of in stages, but did the final kind of buyout and transition and everything in 2015. And then he stayed on. Like, I gave him an office because he still wanted to come into the office and be part of it.
How old was he?
He was born in 1929.
Whoa!
So he was 80. 1929.
No, he's older than that. 70 plus 20.
No, he was 87.
Dang.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So he was.
Well, I know the name's still on the company. So does he have any family that works now?
No.
With y'all?
No, not no relation. But it was just one of those things that the company has been around for so long, and has done because his portfolio before I ever came on the scene was already company. We had Sunrise Mall back when it was it was like the thing, back in Legend of Billie Jean days, So I mean, he did a lot of Twin Dolphins condominiums on Ocean Drive. I mean, he did a lot of cool projects back in the day too. So there's a lot of history there, and obviously he was another one of these people that show up in your life that are inspirational, and really he was hard on me. He wasn't there to give me the keys of the castle. He was there to teach me. Sometimes, through hard lessons, like, hey man, like if this is what you want to do, this is what you're going to have to do. Mm-hmm. And there's so many moments, just like my parents, that I can, you can hear his voice in the back of your mind, like telling you, and then you hear yourself saying it, and you're like, man, I sound just like him.
Oh yeah.
I do that with kids. And he was right. Most of the time, those lessons, and you remember them. I remember him telling me at one point in time when. Was kind of starting to kind of, get out there and network and, start bringing in some projects of my own and things like that early on in my kind of permanent, where I was working full time. And I remember him just out of the blue telling me, he said, I know that you think you're doing good, but the reality is that if you think that you're going to be successful in this career path by relying on my clients, you've got it all wrong. If you don't go out there and find your own clientele and pave your own way outside of me, then when I'm not here anymore,
What are you
you're
gonna
not going to live off of my clients. Like at the end of the day, he's like, most of my clients are retired or they're dying off, at his age, of course. He's like, you got to find your own way. You cannot rely on me at all. You got to put that in your mind that you have to go and build your own network. You got to build your own base. You got to do all of these things because I can't do it for you, and I won't do it for you, because I'm not doing you any good. And it's just like, a parent. He was kind of like my grandpa. I mean, my grandparents, most of my grandparents passed away before I was around, so I didn't have that kind of grandfather type wisdom. And he was there and on a business
Well, also
side.
for people that have lived a life,
Yeah.
to tell others, hey, if you're thinking long term in this, this is what you're going to have to do.
Yeah. And there was so many lessons like that where he just kind of sort of laid it out and it was like just very frank with me. It's like, look, man, I'm doing this for your own good, and it was great to have that kind of mentor. Fatherly type role there, and my parents were there all along too. So I've been blessed with a huge support network, and I'd be remiss without mentioning my wife in all of this because, she's been with me through kind of sort of the, supporting me as I went and bought into the company, and has always kind of been supportive of
Does she work with the company as well?
She does not. No. She works at Driscoll Children's Hospital currently. She's a director of, I don't even know how to say her whole title, but basically reimbursement for their large-scale governmental programs, so Medicaid, stuff like that.
So do you do any stuff for Driscoll?
No, I don't. Well, I don't because I'm actually on the governing board of Driscoll.
Okay.
So I kind of sort of, when I joined, kind of separation of church and state, kind of things. Just
Get off the board, start making hospitals.
No, that is hospital and healthcare work is something that we don't really. That is really a specialized niche, right? And while we do just about everything under the sun, that's the one area that we've kind of sort of stayed away from.
Is it because it's more technical because of all the machinery, or what's the difference?
I think that there's a lot of regulations and stuff like that. Obviously, especially when you start getting into ambulatory like type care where people are knocking people out.
Yeah.
There's just, you got to go through Health and Human Services. There's just a whole nother animal part of that, and so but we've been able to, Michelle and I, my wife, we have two kids, Miles and Merritt, and they're great kids. They're both here in school and at CCISD, and but she's been very supportive through all of it because this is my dream, right? And at the end of the day, it takes. She's been the one to hold a steady job because I mean, you in business and there are ebbs and flows, and there are good times.
I grew up like that with my mom and dad because my mom had the corporate job. She worked for Southwest and Bell, and my dad owned a hair salon. He actually used to own a hair salon right here, a couple doors over.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
many years ago.
Yeah, okay.
And so for him, I got to see both the corporate world, insurance,
and then owning your own
savings,
business,
retirement, and then my dad kind of just doing whatever he wanted to do.
Yep.
So I was like, all right, how do we combine these? Because I see what you're doing right,
but
I see what you're doing wrong. And then Mom, take a day off. She never would do it. So I had to kind of combine the two to figure out how I want to do it.
Find the balance, and that was kind of like my parents too. I mean, my mom was the one that was always the saver, and always kept her job, and Dad would go off and do his thing, entrepreneurial, and want to do that.
That's exactly the same thing.
And then kind of come back with his tail between his legs and say, hey, Mama, I gotta go back to work. And, but with Michelle, it's been that way. She's had the steady job. She's an accountant, so she's by nature a saver, and I'm like the eternal optimist. Oh, it's going to be fine,
get more projects.
Yeah. And that's the way I've always viewed it.
That's the way I view real estate.
Yeah, it's like it's like I don't have a spending problem. I just got to go find a way to go make more revenue or whatever. And so, but I think that. Being able to have those people in your life that have been supportive has been huge. I mean, I my staff, they're supportive of everything, and I get a lot of the limelight, right? Because my name's on the door, and I'm the more public face of the company. But the reality is, there's just a whole orchestrated, highly skilled team that I have, and they're just amazing. I really they were there late last night, working on a deadline that we have, and it's got to get out. And man, it's ordering pizza, and we've tried to have a really cool, fun culture. We're kind of a band of misfits in a way.
Where's y'all's office at?
So we're at the corner of Doddridge and Alameda, kind of right there.
Oh, that's
Doddridge Plaza.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're right there, kind of right in the Lamar Park area.
Is it the office that has like the clear windows?
Yeah.
The pool table?
No. That was
that?
RES. That
was
okay. That was.
So I remember
RES.
driving by that office, and I thought
we're right behind that. Actually,
that looks like a fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our office is pretty cool, man. I say it's cool. It's modern and open like this.
It's not a big mess like this place.
No. You walk in and we got like a coffee table with like the giant Lego Millennium Falcon that we built. Me and my son built. So we've got a lot of art around, and it's a cool place. It's an open, collaborative workspace like you would imagine. And so
you know that guy?
I do. What's going on, man? How you doing? Good to see you.
Sneaking in with some food.
Yeah. So it's great to have a great team. Honestly, I've been really lucky to be able to hire and I've been very selective. I mean, it's a ground up, hand selected team that we brought in. And
well, you're putting your name on it.
Yeah. No, you are, and trying to establish that culture, right, and instill kind of this is the way we do business, right. I mean, we're going to take care of our clients. We're going to do great design. We're going to continue to push the envelope, and so far it's been successful, and we've been able to kind of grow organically over time. But it's taken a long time. I mean, I sit back and I think, where we're at today, and we have these wonderful opportunities throughout this community. There's a couple of projects we're working on I can't even talk about, but
that was going to be my question I had for you. I was like, what do you know is coming up? You can tell me off the mic.
Yeah, I can tell you off the mic, but we're working on some really cool radical stuff that I just kind of pinch myself sometimes. I'm like, what? Like
we said at the very beginning, like I think that there's so much stuff going on, and that people don't involve themselves enough to know. They just rather complain.
Yeah.
And sit back and just kind of wait for it to be in their face. And then when it is in their face, they'll find something else to complain.
Sure.
Those people are always going to be there. But I think our city has a lot of great things happening in the works, snowballing again.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
And it's people like you. It's people that are taking chances and starting businesses and partnersps and saying, hey, let's make it work.
And I think part of it is, another project that the mayor mentioned is a Whitecap Preserve. Going on the island. We're involved in, we're designing all their amenity spaces, and we're working on helping them on
that I think is going to be pretty amazing. If it's pulled off the way I think it's going to, and it'll take, a long time. Yeah. That's going to be pretty amazing.
No, it's going to be cool. So, I mean, you go and kind of look at these different things going on in the city, and, we have been blessed to be involved in quite a few of them, right? And I think it's going to continue that way. In the industrial space, we also do a lot of, I have a passion for economic development in general, and just kind of, major job creation. I've spent, 7 years on the Economic Development Corporation, the regional, and chaired it, and, was involved in recruitment of some of these larger projects like GCGB and ExxonMobil and Sabic and Steel Dynamics and things of that nature, and that's just fascinating to me. And I think there's an aspect of that of not only all the things or realizing all the things, and people want to complain about stuff that's not happening, but one of the other lessons that I remember, Betty Turner, which is Mr. Turner's wife, was the mayor of Corpus. I remember her telling me very, very early on, and having her as a mentor as well. She had just like Paulette. I mean, she served as mayor of this city. Was a councilwoman before that, and just was involved in all sorts of things, community service wise. And I remember her telling me very distinctly, she's like, Philip, you will get out of this community but what you're willing to put into it.
True.
And if you're not, then
you can't complain.
Then you get what you get, right? And I just remember her telling me, you got to get involved. You got to get involved from the get-go. And it's not necessarily just from a business perspective, but if you want this place to change, you want it to grow, you're going to have to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. Don't be part of the problem.
What's
be a part
the old
of the
expression? Be the change you want to see?
Sure, in the world. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's true. I mean, I've I'd sacrificed to my family time and, my, just my free personal time. People ask me, like, you golf and you have hobbies, and the reality is I wish I had the time to do that. Got kids now, so that they kind of take up a lot of that time or the space that I would if I didn't have kids. Mm-hmm. I keep telling them, I was like, if y'all weren't around, I'd go fishing every weekend. But obviously they're a blessing. And
how old are your kids?
10 and about to be 8. My
cool.
son's
That's
10.
pretty close to my kids. Yeah. My little girl's 11 and my little boy's 9.
Yeah, my son just started 5th grade in Windsor Park, and then my daughter is about to turn 8. Merritt, and she's just a 3rd grader.
Wait till the middle school stuff, dude.
I know. I don't even want
like the middle school stuff is happening now. I really thought I had more time.
Yeah, yeah.
I was like, this is 8th or 9th grade stuff. No, it's happening.
No. Life comes at you fast, right? And I know that's part of it. But there's a sacrifice that comes to that. But I really, my message to people that want to sit there and complain is like, oh yeah, well, what are you doing about it? Are you get involved? There's so many boards, there's so many different organizations that need people to get engaged, to get involved, and have a voice. And people think, well, I can't make a difference, and that's not true at all. I mean, I'm some kid from Portland, Texas that is now able to be involved in some of these changes that are happening in our community, and I feel like I am making a difference, and I feel like there's a validation in that, in the sense that I'm trying to make it. And there is it may sound kind of self-serving, but it's like, look, I want this to be a better place for my kids,
Sure.
and I do believe that this community will be that.
I think people that have kids are like, I want my kids to stay here.
That's right.
I don't want my kids to stay
I don't want them to have to feel like they have to go to Austin because there's nothing here for them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen that. I've lived it. It's what happened to all my friends. Well,
especially because we were doing it at a time where social media was taking off too.
Sure.
So you would see it,
and
now. these people are, I mean, kids are seeing everything everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to go do this over here and do this over here. It's like, no, you're not.
You remember hearing like when the Valley got their first PF Chang's, and
Oh,
you're just
yeah.
like, oh man, they got PF Chang's.
The mall
like,
is crazy. I'm like, what?
Yeah. I mean, oh man, they got Papados over there. I still love a Papados here, but that's beside the point. But yeah, I mean, I think there's an aspect of that, but I really do feel like there is an energy right now that I have not felt since I moved back. Right, I mean, having been back now, next year will be 20 years. I feel like there's that, we talked about that, kind of got stunted a little bit and kind of the momentum stopped a little bit.
But it's building back up.
But we're coming back out of COVID. There's a lot of really big things happening. And I think as it starts to congeal, I think you begin to, I think it's just going to, it's that snowball effect, right? It just keeps getting bigger and bigger, and the momentum, it's just harder to stop. And even against some of our own actions, right? I mean, we in the past as a community have found ways to shut down deals or get against it or whatever, but I think some of this stuff is going to happen regardless.
Do you think when people hear those stories, like there's always the
SeaWorld or
SeaWorld and Bass Pro Shop, like did those things really happen the way people think it happened? Or was there a little more politics behind it where it's like, look, we tried, it just didn't work out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of nuance there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know that SeaWorld was ever going to really come. I think maybe they considered it, but certainly, there's incentives, there's complicated things that are involved in some of these deals we've been put together. It's like a real estate deal, like anything else. One little parameter changes and the deal falls apart, and it just is what it is. And some things are out of your control, but I think the more we do continue to kind of bring these larger scale projects, we continue to improve our community and our downtown. And we talk about this, that quality of life stuff, but it's really about quality of place, right? I mean, for younger individuals, it's really like, well, I hear people talk about it all the time, or say, oh, there's, the younger people, there's nothing to do in Corpus. That, man,
there's so much stuff.
There's so much
and there's
stuff.
so much fun stuff happening, even little things. Like, have you seen and these like little fun stuff that you see out of town? And then when it's happening here, people go, oh, well, they're trying to be like so-and-so. It's like, no, we're trying to be like us. Like they're doing like a Saturday night LED bike thing. Have you seen that?
I've seen it. Yeah,
it looks awesome. There's like, I was
like a lot of fun.
We were at our friends the other day downtown, little bar Goldfish and Full Send Barbecues right next door.
Yeah.
They all passed through. It was like a parade of 100-something plus bikes.
I mean, that's
I was
awesome.
like, that's cool.
Yeah.
But again, people see that and go, oh, they're trying to be like, no, we're trying to be like us.
We're going to be us, right? And that, I think that's important. I mean, and I do think that there is a uniqueness to our pace of life here.
Sure.
My sister lives in Austin, and I was just up there last weekend or weekend before, and man, I love all the attributes of the bigger cities like that, but I wouldn't trade it for what the quality of place in life that I have here. I have my, if you think of people as creatures of habit, right? I mean, I have my little world kind of like in where we live, and by my office, and got kind of our kind of watering hole, and places. But I can always go venture out, and we can go do things. I mean, you go to art walk, or you've got all these different things that are happening around this community. Even the farmers markets that they're starting to do. I mean, these things, they just build upon themselves.
Yeah, the art walks have been getting
Think about
incredible.
how many festivals we have now versus what we did. It was Bayfest and Buck Days.
And then we killed
Bayfest, and then it was like Buck Days, and now there's like a festival almost every month.
Yeah.
And so I think that all of these things are that kind of younger generation of either there's a stickiness factor that people talk about, and if somebody's moving here, you've got to engage them and get a social fabric and network of friendliness of people that they're friends with. If you can do that within 3 years, the likelihood that somebody's going to stay in this area that's not from here is huge. But also just retention of our young people. We've got great educational organizations here with Del Mar and TAMUCC, and as the economy grows because of these developments and the industrial growth and all this sort of stuff, there's jobs, man. There's jobs
we don't have to
there.
have the term I always used to hear back in the day was like brain drain.
Right, we don't have
where
to
we
have
these
that.
smart, great people here that would take off and be like, whoa, what?
And you look at some of these businesses, like you said, that you got this entrepreneurial spirit, and you see things popping up that you would have never popped up before, like Bory, meat market, Full Send, you start seeing that, and now it becomes people are posting about it on social media and like, hey man, this is really cool. This is something different than what we had before.
Well, the reason why, a couple of things. The reason why I like talking to different people that are doing different things in the city that have I think every single person that we've had here on the podcast, including yourself, have taken that leap, have taken that jump, have kind of taken a risk. And I know for certain people, and me and Jessica have talked about this, like, if people get one thing out of hearing conversations that I have with people, is that, hey, all these different people might be in different industries,
sure,
but they've all, in their own way, all right, I'm going to do it. And just whatever it was, they did it.
Yeah.
And so I know so many people, like we're talking about, have these ideas, are capable of doing the things that we all want to have as a community.
Yeah.
And we just have to go ahead and do it. And I talked to my little girl about this. We were leaving church on Sunday, and we were walking in the parking lot of Church Unlimited. And I said, it was so hot. And I go, what do you think people were doing like 100 or 200 years ago in this exact spot?
Yeah.
I go, they weren't going home to their AC. They weren't going home to do anything. I go, people that decide to settle down in a certain area decided to start making a better life,
Right.
not only for themselves, but for people around them. So
Right.
that way it's like, hey, let's all, because there's those old saying, it takes community
Yeah, it
in
does.
all aspects to
It
raise
does.
children, to raise
Yeah.
a relationship, or to raise friendships, or just a community. Like
Yeah.
it takes community to raise a
Yeah.
community. We all work together and make
Yeah.
it better living for everybody.
Yeah, no, this is a fantastic community. It really is, and I'm now reached a point in my life and my wife and where I could literally live anywhere in the world that I wanted to. I mean that's within attainment. Right?
If you could, though, where would you want to go?
If I could, I'm here because I choose to be. Right at the end of the day, I could. If you ask me if
But
I
it's
had to
like,
go buy
hey,
a second home somewhere.
No,
I
phone's
mean,
turned off.
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
Kids are already in school. It's
Yeah.
just you and the wife now.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about work, emails.
I think this would always still be home. Like honestly,
Really? You wouldn't go buy a house somewhere else?
I mean, I would have another house maybe somewhere, but I think that this is always, there's roots here. I like it here. I like the pace. Again, I like the pace of life here. We have people that come and retire here on purpose.
Yeah.
Like, I
But
was joking.
still, I think that I always joke with my wife. We call it like the end of the world plan. Like, right, end of the world, we got to go somewhere.
right.
Where are we going? And we both decided it's got to be somewhere tropical.
Yeah.
Super clear water.
Yeah.
Jessica
that would be
thinks
cool.
mountains, right? Aren't you
Oh
mountains?
yeah, I'm
She wants
definitely
mountains.
not a mountains guy. Yeah, I'm not. I would be more in the tropical water.
I
But
want some clear blue water.
But this is ultimately this is home, right?
Yeah.
And what draws me here is the people, the culture here, just the pace of life. It's still a place where you can come and be successful as an entrepreneur, and I feel like the markets in the bigger cities are mature in that regard. There's not, if you want to come and carve your path here, I think there's
space.
there's space here, and
100%.
I think that's there's a lot of value in that. It's hard to describe. It's not a tangible thing, but if you could do that and explain it to people. And we're already in Texas, right? So we're in a great business environment just in general. And then you see everything happening around us. It's like, why wouldn't I want to be a part of that? And so, yeah, I mean, are there things that the heat and the humidity? I mean, yeah. I mean,
if it's a little cooler, I'd be happy.
But every community has, we want to pretend like this community has, flaws like the roads and things of that nature. Man, I just got back from, Napa, California, which is, got plenty of money and lots of, and their roads were
Trash.
I mean, getting to some of the, really super little quaint little towns where they can afford to repave all the roads and make it picturesque, but not all of it's that way. The highways, I mean, all that stuff is like, man.
But yeah,
you
but
would
if
thought
I'm,
you were
if I'm
in-
driving down, if I'm driving down Castores, and at the end of Castores there's a vineyard, I'm feeling a little different.
Well, that's true. That is true. But I would say that ultimately these challenges that we have are not unique to
They're
Corpus.
not, yeah.
And everyone wants to pretend like well, it's just Corpus has bad streets. No,
No,
I mean,
everywhere.
this is a problem all over the place. And it's just something that's magnified because we have more of it, I guess. In the
What did
perception.
Paulette say yesterday? How many people were in that department?
Oh,
For
man,
the
I don't
roads?
even remember
It was
what
a
she
big
said. It's
number.
a big department.
When she said the number, I go, really?
Yeah.
I was like, that's amazing.
But I think if we can, that problem is being handled, and I think you're to your point is that there's a lot. You can't lose the forest through the trees. You can focus on hyper focus on that and say, well, everything that's symbolic of everything else endemic going wrong with the community.
Yeah,
The
because
reality is
if we
it's the
snapped our
reverse.
fingers and they all got fixed tomorrow,
Yeah.
someone else would find something.
Someone else will find something else. But the reality is, I think if you look beyond that and you see kind of the leadership that we have, the way that we're moving forward as a community, and even the business community and the younger community, I think it's on a fantastic trajectory, and I'm really excited about to see the next 10 years. I think that 10 years window, I think we're going to be fine 20, 30 years from now, but I think that 10-year window is
one's gonna
really
take
where
place.
things are really going to, I think take off. I'm excited about, the downtown and, everything happening there. You can see it. I mean, you can see it, that district starting to come back and alive.
agree.
When it used to be where there was this row of nightclubs and entertainment, it's going to look a little different, but I think there's still a place where you can go walk and go to multiple places and be entertained, that outside of that work environment, and for a tourist, all
It
of
has
these
to.
things
Well, I told
matter.
who was I talking to? Mark Gonzalez one time. I said it has to, or maybe it's Dusty. I said it has to be the heart of the
Yeah,
city.
it
Like
has to be.
it has to beat like a heart,
It
and
has
it'll
to
grow
be
everything
healthy,
else.
and it's just like the body, man. I mean,
Yeah.
if you have a healthy heart, everything else kind of radiates out from there. And I think that But as a whole, I think this community's got so much going on, in general.
Well, you're taking a big part in it.
Well,
so that's why I wanted you in here today.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm super blessed and super excited. I mean, honestly, couldn't do this without, being blessed by the man upstairs. And,
Yep.
I consider myself extremely fortunate. It's not certainly gone without a lot of hard work, but there's a lot of support, having faith, and then also a lot of support by my family and by those people that have been around me, my friends that have just been along the way, just, hey man, you keep doing what you're doing. And even people that I don't know, right? I mean, I heard your story or whatever, and just, I've gotten so much encouragement, and sometimes I neglect to sit back and think about how special all of that is, and to be able to get a chance to do that, it's pretty cool, because it's when I go home at night and think about what we're involved in, it's not like a normal job, right? It's I get to go drive by that Del Mar Oso Creek campus and point at my kids and say, or my kids drive by and say, oh yeah, my dad designed that, or worked on that. And so I'm
really
driving
special. By and going, hey, my friend.
Yeah, that's cool.
I know him.
Yeah. But it really, I don't know. Had I taken that other path, it would have been fantastic. I'm sure I would have had a great life and served my country and done all those things. And hats off to all those that did that. But I couldn't really see myself doing anything else. And I'm hoping that it just continues, man.
Life turns you in the direction that I feel it was supposed to go.
Yeah.
And I know you're really busy, so I appreciate you coming in
Yeah.
and doing this. This is Gino's table. I believe everybody brings something to the table.
Sure.
You definitely bring a lot, so I appreciate you.
Yeah, well,
let me get you a marker quick so you can sign us. I would love, I'm not sure how good you are at drawing, but if you can do your logo, that would be kind of cool.
Oh, man.
Are you able to do that?
I think so. I can
All right,
take a swing at it.
Take one of these.
Yeah.
All right, appreciate you, man.
Okay,
Thank you
cool.
for coming in.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks, Gino.
Of course,
Yeah,
man.
thanks.
That was awesome. Do you need more pics?